We started a series last week called Strong Women of the Bible. Last week, if you weren't here with us, we looked at the story of Esther. And we're going to continue that series today with another one of my favorite Old Testament characters. But as I was thinking about this, I love going out of town. I love going on trips. There's just something special about staying in a hotel every once in a while, isn't there? At least for me. Not everybody likes that. I get that. But it seems that, it's okay if you're out of town, you stay with family or friends. But there's just something special about staying in a nice hotel. And when you find a good one, you try to remember where it is. That way, if you have to go back to that same area, you know which hotel it was, and you try to get back to it. While Kelly and I were in New Mexico, we would go to Albuquerque about once a year in November to go to a concert that we always tried to attend. And we found a hotel that we really liked. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was one that we stayed at a few different times. It was near a mall, so it had something to do around us. It was near one of our favorite restaurants, and it was quiet. It was very peaceful. It was you got a lot of privacy there. It's always nice to come home, too, don't get me wrong there. But there's just something special about getting away, even just for a night, every once in a while. In fact, last weekend, Kelly and I got to go to Woodward for a minister's retreat, and we got to stay at the Hampton Inn there in a suite that was included with the retreat, and it was just nice to get away every once in a while. And again, I get that not everyone likes that, but I think most of us enjoy traveling at least a little bit. You get to leave responsibilities behind. You get to just relax. Sometimes, though, the more you pay, the better the amenities are, right? The better hospitality is, the better things you get, the more privacy you get. That's not always the way that things worked. In ancient cultures, for the most part, however, especially in Jewish culture, hospitality was considered an expectation. You were expected to be hospitable to travelers. Jews were expected to take others in without charging them anything. The law that God gave Moses laid that out to them, that they were to open their homes for travelers, that they were to not charge anything. They were expected to not only take them in, give them a place to stay, but they were to give them something to eat and just take care of them. In fact, we see that taking place in the New Testament. Jesus, when he sent out his disciples to preach, to prepare his way, he tells them to take nothing of value with them. Don't take a money bag. Don't take an extra coat with them. In fact, Matthew 10, 5 through 15 recorded it this way, and I forgot to mark my Bible, so I'm going to... There it is. These 12 Jesus sent out with the following instructions: do not go among the Gentiles or enter any town of the Samaritans. Go rather to the lost sheep of Israel, and as you go, proclaim this message: the kingdom of heaven has come near. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, drive out demons. Freely you have received, freely give. Do not get any gold or silver or copper to take with you in your belts. No bag for the journey, or extra shirt or sandals or staff, for the worker is worth his keep. Whatever town or village you enter, search there for some worthy person and stay at their house until you leave. As you enter the home, give it your greeting. If the home is deserving, let your peace rest on it. If it is not, let your peace return to you. If anyone will not welcome you or listen to your words, leave that home or town and shake the dust off your feet. Truly I tell you, it will be more bearable for Sodom and Gomorrah on the day of judgment than for that town. So why? Why would that be the case? Why would Jesus tell them that? One, he wanted them to trust God to provide for them. But at the same time, inns were not looked upon with much fondness. In fact, they were considered most of the time dens of iniquity for the most part. So they were places that very lowly people would stay. Not just in Jewish culture either. This was ancient culture. Greeks found paying for hospitality to be a horrible thing. It was revolting to them to even think about having to pay for hospitality. Not surprising, and if you've been in our study of Hebrews, we'll get to this in a few weeks on Sunday evenings. But the author of Hebrews reminds his readers in Hebrews 13 that hospitality is something that is to be expected, that it was not something that you should have to ever pay for. In fact, inns were equated with dirty living. The Jewish historian that we know as Josephus points out that our main character today, Rahab, was an innkeeper. It wasn't enough for him to point out what we always point out, that she was a prostitute. That's usually what we think of first when we think of Rahab, but Josephus thought it bad enough that she was an innkeeper that was what she pointed out when he started talking or writing about Rahab. But if that gives us something to think about too, that maybe that is actually why the Jewish spies that we meet in Joshua 2 are found in her place of business. Maybe they weren't there to engage in the prostitution side of things. Maybe they were just looking for a place to stay. I bring all of this out as we start to look at Rahab. Again, she's going to be our main character this morning. But I bring all of that out to point out she was not the most respectable person that you're going to meet. She was in a despicable line of work in two different ways. We think of it in the line of prostitution, but in her era that she lived in, being an innkeeper was just as bad, if not worse, than a prostitute. Not only is she identified in Joshua 2 right away as a prostitute, but we also see again from Josephus that she may have been an innkeeper, which again in that culture, and this blows my mind to think of it, but in that culture that was as bad, if not worse, than being a prostitute. But our main text again is going to be Joshua 2. We're going to look at that story in depth. So go ahead and turn to your Bibles to Joshua 2. It will not be on the screen. So I'll give you a second to get there. And this is after, basically right after Moses had died, the 40 years of wandering in the wilderness had just been completed. Moses died. Joshua is taken over as the leader of the Israelites. And they're about to go into the land, to the promised land, to take it for themselves. Then Joshua, son of Nun, secretly sent 2 spies from Shittim. "Go look over the land," he said, "especially Jericho." So they went and entered the house of a prostitute named Rahab and stayed there. The king of Jericho was told, "Look, some of the Israelites have come here tonight to spy out the land." So the king of Jericho sent this message to Rahab: "Bring out the men who came to you and entered your house, because they have come to spy out the whole land." But the woman had taken the 2 men and hidden them. She said, "Yes, the men came to me, but I did not know where they had come from. At dusk, it was time to close the city gate, they left. When it was time to close the city gate, they left. I don't know which way they went. Go after them quickly, you may catch up with them." But she had taken them up to the roof and hidden them under the stalks of flax that she had laid out on the roof. So the men set out in pursuit of the spies on the road that leads to the fords of the Jordan. And as soon as the pursuers had gone out, the gate was shut. So we see Rahab here lying, okay? She's considered a good person at the end of Scripture, we'll see in Hebrews, but she sets out a lie here to take care of these men. Before the spies lay down for the night, she went up to the roof and said to them, "I know that the Lord has given you this land, and that a great fear of you has fallen on us, so that all who live in this country are melting in fear because of you. We have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to Sihon and Og, the 2 kings of the Amorites east of the Jordan, whom you completely destroyed. When we heard of it, our hearts melted in fear, and everyone's courage failed because of you. For the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on earth below." So she has a healthy fear of who God is. "Now then, please swear to me by the Lord that you will show kindness to my family, because I have shown kindness to you. Give me a sure sign that you will spare the lives of my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them. and that you will save us from death." And the spies replied, "Our lives for your lives," the men assured her. "If you don't tell what we are doing, we will treat you kindly and faithfully when the Lord gives us this land." So she let them down by a rope through the window, for the house she lived in was a part of the city wall. And she said to them, "Go to the hills so the pursuers will not find you. Hide yourselves there 3 days until they return, then go on your way." Now the men had said to her, "This oath you made us swear will not be binding on us unless, when we enter the land, you have tied this scarlet cord in the window through which you let us down, and unless you have brought your father and mother, your brothers, and all your family into your house. If any of them go outside your house into the street, their blood will be on their own heads. We will not be responsible. As for those who are in the house with you, their blood will be on our head if a hand is laid on them. But if you tell what we're doing, we will be released from the oath you made us swear." "Agreed," she replied. "Let it be as you say." So she sent them away, and they departed. As she tied the scarlet cord in the window. When they left, they went into the hills and stayed there 3 days until the pursuers had searched all along the road. They returned without finding them. And then the 2 men started back. They went down out of the hills, forded the river, and came to Joshua, son of Nun, told him everything that had happened to them. And they said to Joshua, "The Lord has surely given the whole land into our hands. All the people are melting in fear because of us." So Rahab tells them that she, as long as they'll protect her when they come in to destroy the land, that she won't turn them in. 4 chapters later, we find out the fate of Rahab, and we're not going to read it, but we found out the fate of Rahab and her family. She kept her word. She kept her end of the deal. She hid the spies' true location. She didn't tell afterwards what had happened. And through Joshua, God honored the deal that she made with the spies. When the walls of Jericho came tumbling down, she and her entire family that were in her home were spared. They were the only ones in the whole city that were spared. Because of her faithfulness, get this blows me away every time I think about Rahab. Because of her faithfulness, her name is mentioned in some New Testament books as well. Matthew 1, she's mentioned in the line of Jesus. She is in the genealogy of Jesus. One of 2 women that are mentioned as being an ancestor of Jesus. So if anyone ever questions it, Jesus had a prostitute in his line, in his lineage. Hebrews 11, she's mentioned in the Faith Hall of Fame. By faith, the prostitute Rahab, because she welcomed the spies, was not killed with those who were disobedient. James mentions her in James 2:25 and 26. In the same way, was not even Rahab the prostitute considered righteous for what she did when she gave lodging to the spies and sent them off in a different direction. As the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without deeds is dead. So James mentions her after talking about how Abraham backed up his faith with what he did. He says Rahab did the same thing. She said she was going to do something, and then she backed it up. When I've read about Rahab in the past, I've always thought about her courage, and she was courageous. But I saw something else in her story this time. And it's something that I think we can all get a whole lot out of. I saw another attribute that I think we can learn a lot from Rahab. And I just mentioned it. She said she was going to do something, and then she did it. She held to her word. She had opportunities to take back her word and give up the spies. As soon as the spies left, she could have gone to the king and said, "I just sent them to the hills to hide for 3 days. Maybe if you go take care of them, the Israelites won't come in and take us." She could have not believed them and fled on her own and ended up being killed in the battle. But she said she would protect them. She said she wouldn't tell what was going to happen. And she held up her end of the deal, and she was rewarded for it. She could have lost her courage. She could have went to the king. She could have fled, but she didn't. She kept her word. And in this day and age, I think we can all get a whole lot out of that, because there's not a whole lot of people that keep their word anymore, it doesn't seem like. So I'm going to pose this question as I wrap up. What would happen if we were all to keep our word, no matter what it cost us? If we say we're going to do it, we do it. We don't have to swear it. We don't have to promise it. If we say we're going to do something, we do it. What would happen if we all took that stance and we all tried the best of our ability to follow that through? This community, this town, this state, this country would be a whole lot better off if we did that, wouldn't they? So I'm going to ask you to think about this in your own life. What would happen if I stood up and kept my word? And I'm not saying that no one here keeps their word, but if that is something you struggle with, what would happen? What would change in your life? What would change in the lives of those around you if you said you were going to do something and you followed through with it? So that's what Christ calls us to do. He calls us to be men and women of our word. Rahab was very courageous, but she also was very honest. She followed through with what she said she was going to do. And that's my challenge for all of us today. Follow through. If you say you're going to do something, do it. One of the main things that I hope that most of us will say in our lives that we're going to do is that we're going to follow Jesus with everything that we've got. But we need to be men and women of our word when we say that and strive to follow Him. And if you've never given your life to Jesus, now would be a great time to do so. In fact, the song that we're singing this morning, I'd Rather Have Jesus, number 506, is perfect for this. It's the idea of I'd rather have Jesus than anything else. We're going to sing the first and second verse.